Welcome to episode 5 of Bernie's Bums. Olivia, how's it going?
Doing all right.
Did you stay up for that 18 innings last night?
Oh, you betcha I did. All 5.5 hours.
Holy cow. I almost was. There kind of gets to a point where it's the same thing where, for those of you that watch basketball, Portland Trailblazers and the Denver Nuggets went into 4 overtimes. And I'm just like, let's just keep this thing rolling as far as we can. As obviously you want your team to win, but I'm like, let's make history here. We're already this far, but it was good to see that the Brewers pulled out the win, especially um, our guy Ryan Braun, who I completely trashed last week. So props to him for making me eat my words.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that should be translated to my guy because you were convinced his career was over last week.
yeah, I sure was,
So I
and
can officially so I can officially say welcome back to the bandwagon. It's great to have you. If you start doubting these guys anymore, we you may not get an invitation back.
I appreciate the mercy from the bandwagon. Don't get me wrong, Ryan Braun is one of my favorite players ever, but it's sometimes sometimes hard to watch him struggle the way he does. But he has done that over the course of his career. You've seen him struggle in the first part of the year, and um, I took the low hanging fruit, and I'm like, he's done. He's washed up. So it's good to see him driving the ball, 6 hits, 6 or 8 last night, and it probably should have been um, the one that he hit, the one that he hit before his walk off, where he got out. That play that was made in left field by McNeil, that should have probably been fell as a hit too. So he hit the ball hard all 8 at bats, which was great to see. Um, him Speaking of Ryan Braun doing well, another guy that I said was done, Jesus Aguilar, getting nuts. The guy over his last 7 on base percentage of 450, slugging 875 with 3 home runs and 7 RBI. Two of those bombs came in one game, and he's starting to hit the ball the opposite field like he was when he was finding success last year. How exciting was that to see him start to bust out again?
It's really exciting to see him again, and it adds a lot of depth to the Brewers lineup and just pinch hitting wise. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said driving it to opposite field. I believe he's very much like Orlando Arcia, where he needs to think opposite field. Otherwise, he's going to get too pull heavy and bad things are going to happen. So I think it's been awesome to see him kind of break out and to really like. I think we could all see the weight lifted off of his shoulders after that first home run. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. He hit a double today too, and you saw him as his loose, typical self. Um, Turns to the dugout, looks straight at Brent Suter, and gives him a little peace sign, and they go back and forth with it. Um, it's nice to see him getting all goofy again too. So he's a kind of a heart and soul guy for you. So it's nice to see that starting to come around again for him. Um, Lorenzo Kane on a negative end. The guy's been playing well for him for the Brewers defensively, making some great plays. He may be out for an extended time, which would be a real problem. Today he got hit on the hand, and similar to Travis Shaw, just straight fastball right to his bottom swinging hand. So for him it would be his left hand. Um, is this going to be a problem? Do you think he's? I suppose we haven't heard anything back, so we can't be definitive on what it is. But this could be a real issue for the Brewers going forward if he's out for an extended period of time. He may not be hitting the ball as well as you expect Lorenzo Kane to be, but what he brings to the table will be surely missed if he's gone. What do the Brewers do as far as sharing the reps if Lorenzo Kane is done for, let's say, a month?
Well, I don't think he will be gone for a month, considering the X-rays did come back negative.
Oh, did they? Okay, sorry, I
Yeah,
must have missed that then. That, thank God. All right, there we
yeah.
go.
So I think, I mean, they're obviously going to be extremely cautious with him, like they did with Christian Yelich this past week. But I don't, as much as it does suck, it doesn't like hit me as hard because I know that Ben Gamble is going to be able to come in and be very productive. Maybe not as productive defensively, but just be a good all around baseball player. And also, too, to have Eric Thames who can play the outfield. It makes me feel a little bit better that we have guys going who can kind of take that spot while he's gone. And again, I don't think he'll be gone that long. I'm kind of
Mm,
basing it off of Travis Shaw, where he was out a couple games. I mean, obviously, like I said before, they're going to be cautious, but I don't think it's hurting me as much as you would think.
right. So here's the thing, though. Like you look at Travis Shaw, he came off of the same thing, right? And obviously, it could be a completely different spot on the hand just because it's so intricate the way that your hand is, so many different spots on there. Shaw has not been good, and it's been really he's had a real tough time getting back into it at the plate. Kane hasn't been anything to write home about now, unless we have a rookie of the year situation where now he gets hit and he just starts going crazy. This could be something that even holds him up a little more. So I don't disagree with you that Gamel is definitely a viable option to be able to play there. Um, but in comparison to Lorenzo Kane, and it's no knock against Gamel, because I think you could say the same thing about almost any outfielder in the MLB. You're now getting a minus defender in comparison to Kane, and it's a big drop off from Kane to Gamel, Kane to Braun, Kane to even Yelich. And that's saying something because Yelich fields his position very well, Gamel fields his position very well. So I don't know, it's gonna be something that hurts, especially being able to bring balls back into the ballpark, which the Brewers seem to be running out of a lot of balls game after game, even though the last few games against the Mets have been awesome from the pitching staff. Um, so speaking of that, talking about opponents, Brewers are staying at home for the next series against Washington, and then they take their talents to Chicago to face off against the Cubs. That being said, the Brewers are currently third in the division. Like that's something that we'll probably start to give more updates on as we get deeper in the year now. Since it's still early, but it was really early before, so you don't want to be looking at the standings all too much. But right now they're half a game behind Chicago and 2 games behind St. Louis. And what's great is that both of them are playing each other this week. So like they're able to beat up on each other. If the Brewers keep winning, they find a way at the top of the division right away. Now, does that mean a ton in May? Not really, but it's always good to be on top. Do you think that um, what stock do you put in being at the top of the division, being third, being whatever at this point in the season?
To be honest, I don't put anything into it. When I start to look at it around the All Star break and kind of figure out where we are midway
Mm,
through the year. And I truly believe you only have to be in first place the last game of the year. So, I mean, we got like 130 some games yet before we got to worry about being in first place at the right time. Because it's going to be nothing if we're in first place by May 17th, but we're not by the time the season ends. So I don't really put anything into it at May. Like I said, the first time when I really start paying attention to it is at the All Star break.
absolutely, and I really like the way that you put that because it's so easy for people to scoreboard watch. It's so easy to get caught up in like, oh, they're in first, they're in last, there could be whatever. Like you look at the Pirates, you look at the Reds, you still have other quality teams that are around that could make a run. Now, I don't necessarily think those two teams will be ones to challenge the top three at this point, but it's not necessarily out of the realm of possibility for them to be able to go make a run. Um, I, it's always nice to say, yeah, first place Brewers, everything like that, but it doesn't really matter at this point. Like you start scoreboard watching later on, I get it, but like you said, when it comes down to it, you need to be on top when it's all said and done in game 162 or in the Brewers case last year 163. So I'm looking forward to um, seeing that battle unfold as you go on because this is going to be a fun division the entire time. Um, Guys that are the big impact that the biggest impact that's starting to help the Brewers turn that tide at this point though is the pitching starting to come back a little bit with Zach Davies becoming what looks like an absolute stud right now, which is shocking to me. I know I said I'm all aboard the Davies train, and I am. I'm just really surprised that he's to this point. Um, Today he went, was it 7 2/3 through about 118 pitches, and really helped the Brewers, who had a bullpen that was used quite a bit yesterday, being basically 2 games being played in one day. Is he a guy that is he the arm that you're going to lean on going through the rest of this year?
Um, he's definitely the arm that I'm leaning on, like at the moment. Like he did everything and more of what we needed today. I was hoping to get 6 out of him, and we ended up
Mhm.
getting a little bit more. So he went out and did exactly what he needed, exactly at the right time, and made pitches. So it kind of reminds me of Yalisha Scene from last year, where he's the guy that you're leaning on, that every day he's gonna, or every start he's gonna go out and he's gonna make his pitches. He's gonna eliminate base runners, and he's just going to be very solid. So I would agree that he's the guy that you're leading on at the moment.
Hmm. Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think Shasin's going to get back to being a guy that you can lean on a little more than you can right now. And it's tough not having him necessarily in the necessarily doing what he's doing other than his last start. I mean, he did really well, 6 scoreless, and you can't ask for much better. That's starting to be the guy that you saw last year. Now it's a matter of him staying consistent and um, finding that spot where he can continue to dominate hitters. Uh, we have a little bit of an issue going forward now that we like Chase Anderson's. It sounds like he's gonna be fine. Like when they said that he was out and they scratched him, they said he lacerated his finger. That sounds terrifying. Like basically his fingers hanging off. When it comes down to it, he popped a callus. Like he's fine. Like he's gonna be good. He's just got to wait his time on the IL, and they needed to put him on there in order to be able to have someone come up. Um, and one of those names that came up is Birch Smith. Now, Birch Smith is a guy that he came over from the Royals. He's, I believe, 28. Um, I've heard nothing but good things about him, but the problem is he's 28 and he's sitting in the minor leagues. What do you know about him? What do you expect about him, or what do you expect from him coming up with the Brewers?
Well, right now I'm looking at his 2018 stats with the Kansas City Royals, and I can tell you right now, they're not pretty. They're, in fact, quite ugly. So I think he was just, I think he's just a fresh arm that was down in the minors, because we've been fluctuating from player to player down there. And I think he's just a fresh arm, and I think they're just going to expect him to go in the bullpen, pitch a couple good innings, and then by the time he's done, somebody else will probably end up coming up. So I think
Mhm.
he's just kind of there to have that bullpen refresh and just give some quality innings while he's up.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll get into it a little bit later. I think he's up here to start. Um, Now we'll see how that goes, but I think he's gonna be the one that fills the spot um, for Anderson in his absence. Um, that speaking of that, so Birch Smith coming up, you corrected me earlier before we even started recording. I thought my friend Jay Jackson was still on the team. That man got DFA'd. There's been a lot of ups and downs of guys getting sent down. Jacob Barnes got sent down. Um, Jay Jackson's gone. Alex Wilson's gone. Birch Smith comes up. The Brewers seem to do this a lot where they're able to send a guy down, bring a guy up, and they do it in such a way that they are able to create matchups. They're able to figure out a way to have a stocked bullpen, like you're saying, if that's what the plan is with Birch Smith. The problem is next year they're moving to a 15-day window or a 15-day period where if you throw a guy on the IL, he's on there for 15 days. If you send a guy down, he's got to be down for 15 days. How is this something that's going to be a detriment to the Brewers, or are they just basically going to figure out a way to adapt?
I think you always got to figure out ways to adapt every season, and I think, Counts for some reason likes to mention soup along with this, where every year you may have the same base, but you have different ingredients, therefore making a different soup. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you look at next year in May, as of right now, which I feel ridiculous doing, I think our pitching staff is going to look completely different.
Yeah.
I see you hope Corbin Burns is going to be back on track. That
You
Woodruff
hope
continue.
Craig Kimbrell's on that roster. I know. I know
Nope,
that's what
I
you were
don't.
looking for.
I
I'm just
don't.
kidding.
I don't. I think you expect to see Woodruff continue to build off of what he's done, and maybe even Freddie Peralta and then Davies and Chacin doing the same thing. So I think you you definitely see a different pitching staff where maybe we're not gonna need to refresh the bullpen every day because they're not having to go 4 to 3 innings every day. So it's gonna be a different ball game next year, and it will probably affect us on like what we want to do, but it's gonna be a completely different look in my eyes.
Yeah, for sure. And like this is like one thing I always like to look at is a lot of other teams do similar things to the Brewers because as the Brewers pitching wise because you can. Like it doesn't make sense not to do it if you can't take advantage of it. They're all faced with the same benefits or detriments on whatever rules put out there because they have to abide by the same thing. So everyone's going to be able to adapt in one way or another. I'm not super worried about it. It makes it tougher, yes, because you have to get guys rolling and staying hot. But I don't know. I think it's going to be just fine. I don't think we're going to have much of a problem with it at that point. Um, let's get into yay or nay. So my guy Ryan Braun,
Oh boy.
he will have double digit home runs by next week. Yay or nay? So right now he's at 7.
What the heck? Yay. I think it's a possibility. If he plays 4 out of the next 6 games, I think it's definitely a possibility with how he's been hitting as of late. But if he doesn't and just gets on base a ton, I won't be angry either. So, yay
Right.
for the heck of it.
I'm gonna go nay, but that's not necessarily saying he's not gonna be hitting the ball. Um, I just I just don't see him necessarily putting that many out of the yard with limited playing time too. I mean, they're going to keep him on the same track that he has. I don't think he's going to. They want him to stay healthy for the remainder of the year, and like we've talked about, it's May. We're not necessarily looking for um, world beaters right now. We're just trying to win games and get through it, and stay healthy. And they're trying to stay healthy throughout the entire thing, so that they got guys later on. Um, so that's the only reason I say nay. I don't think he'll have enough playing time just based off of the way he hits the home runs. I don't think I'll have enough playing time to get the 3, which is fine. Um, next one. The Brewers will be in first place by the end of the next week.
Is I don't care an option for this one?
Sure.
I really don't care whether. I mean, obviously you don't want to put yourself in too deep of a hole, but like we were talking about early, it's May. Oh well. I mean, I have nothing else to say about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll entertain it. I'll say yay. You got St. Louis and Chicago battling it out yet, so we'll see. Um, yeah, if I'm maths right, basically, if you're looking for if you're looking for the Brewers to be closer to the top, you want the Cubs to win today. So yeah, let's not even talk about this because I don't want to cheer for the Cubs. Um, moving on. Next one, Birch Smith will make his first Brewers start on Tuesday in the slot for Chase Anderson.
Nay, I think I kind of already explained my thinking. I think he's just kind of up here to be in the bullpen because obviously after 18 innings yesterday, we're a little stretched out. So I
Mm-hmm.
think he's here for a bullpen spot. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but nay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go yay. I think Birch Smith. I think that's the reason he came up. Like I said before, no more, no need to spend any more time on that. Let's go to Eric Thames. Eric Thames will not start a game this week. Yay or nay?
I'm going to go nay. I think Counts likes to play around with the matchups too much where it would be hard for him not to make a start. Plus, with Lorenzo Kane probably being out this week and Ryan Braun probably needing games off. He's going to need to be in there, whether it's at first base or in the outfield.
Right. So we had this one before Kane got hurt. Had Kane not gotten hurt, I would have said yay, because I think Gamble is going to be the guy to start getting more reps as Thames has scuffled a bit since last week. Um, but I think I said, sorry, I would have said yay. I'm going to say nay now because of the injury. I think I mean, there could be a time where it's Yelich, Gamble, Thames in the outfield and whatever combo, whether it's Gamble in center or Yelich in center. Um, we could see that against a righty pitcher, which sounds intriguing, but we'll see what happens. Um, Christian Yelich, speaking of him, by May 15th, Christian Yelich, the man who put a ball into the third deck today, Christian Yelich will have 20 runs by May 15th, or 20 home runs by May 15th.
If it wasn't for today's home run, I would have said nay on this because I thought he would come back and, be human for a little bit as he kind of got into the swing of things again. Again, no pun intended. But I say yay. I mean, that's 5 in like a week and a half. I think it's
Right.
possible at the rate he's going.
Yay, Christian Yelich will have 22 home runs by May 15th. That's what I'm going with. So I think just his swing's so sweet. It's so hard to pitch him. I mean, if you throw him a cutter anywhere near the zone, that thing is gone. Like it's really hard to and some guys rely on that pitch as get me over pitch. That's going to be tough for guys going forward to be able to get him out. Um, however, he did strike out on a ball right down the middle today, but that's neither here nor there. Um, next one, Freddie Peralta will make his next start. Yay or nay?
I will go yay just from the fact I think if we want him to continue to improve, we're going to need to give him consistent starts and we're going to need to keep him consistent because I think that's the only way. I think it's only fair for him to be able to get better because whether he's getting sent up and down or sitting for 10 days, I think it's unfair for him. And then to say, okay, why are you so bad? So I think he will make his next start just from that fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna go with yay. He will. I think if they weren't going to start him, he would be he'd be in San Antonio at this point. Um, and then the last one for yay or nay, Jesus Aguilar will have an on base percentage north of 295 by the end of the week. Now let's preface this with his on base percentage right now, um, as of today, is 272. So within the week, he will be over 295 or higher.
I say yay. I think it's a viable place for him to be, especially if he keeps hitting at the rate he has been hitting. I think that's definitely a possibility for him to be able to reach that milestone.
I'm going to say nay. I think he's going to cool down a little bit this week. It's not saying he's going to go back in the tank or anything like that, but right now he's hitting like 313 with a 450 on base percentage. I don't think that's sustainable, um, even over a couple weeks for him. But
Talk to
we will
Christian
see. I
Yelich
think
about that one.
right. I'm saying for him,
Gotcha.
for Jesus Aguilar, not for anybody. Um, yeah, I don't see Aguilar being able to do that. He is walking more, which is nice. But we will see. I mean, I again, with anytime I say something negative, I really hope they prove me wrong. I'm loving that him and Braun made me look like an idiot last week. That's awesome. Like, good. I want to see that. So, the week in review, and we've talked a little bit about this. Who was the guy that stood out to you over the course of last week?
I will say my guy Ryan Braun. I said
My
it
guy,
last week
but
that he was gonna break it out, and he proved you right. And I think 6 hits for him on Saturday was it's crazy to see because it's something he hasn't done in his career, even going back to 2008 and 2011 in his quote unquote glory days. So I think it's cool for him to be able to kind of reach back there and find what he was like back in those years.
yeah, I mean he hit every ball hard too, which was nice. So um, it's awesome to see my guy back at it. So um, my highlight player is my guy Zach Davies. Um,
Wow.
just yeah, I got a lot of my guys this week. So no, Zach Davies, talked about it before. 7 2/3. When's the last time we've seen a Brewer pitcher? All we did is Freddie Peralta we saw, but um, he he got nuts today, which is great. I've never seen a Brewer pitcher or haven't seen a Brewer pitcher throw that many pitches in a long time though, with almost 120. Um, but yeah, he's been on fire, and hopefully he continues that. Only gave up 2 runs today in that span. So um, going into disappointments, who do you got?
It's actually, thankfully, it was very hard to choose a disappointment because everybody seems to be doing good right now, except for Travis Shaw. He continues to struggle and then struggle a little bit more and then struggle some more. Um, at this point, I think it's gotten into his head. Baseball is a very mental game, and I think you saw that with Orlando Arcia last year, and I think you're starting to see it with Travis Shaw a little bit. I hope he breaks out because he's very important to this lineup when he's good. So, but it's definitely disappointing to see him continue to struggle.
Yeah, he's posting an 091 with a on base percentage of 167, which that won't cut it on most major league rosters. He really needs to pick it up, and I'm legitimately thinking like he needs to pick it up or he may not be playing, which is a weird thing to say for a guy that you view as like a cornerstone piece for your lineup going into this year. Um, I'd say my disappointment is Yasmani Grandal for this past week. Defensively, it's been very tough to watch him. There's a lot of wild pitches that get or pitches that get credited as wild pitches that get past him that um, I have no understanding on why he is not getting down the block or why he's not squeezing the mid on. I'm just getting increasingly frustrated on watching that, and I think that that's one thing that going into like framing stats and stuff like that, like it's so hard to quantify framing because when it comes down to it, if you're framing, I don't understand how we can really view framing pitches as a stat because you then are basically saying like I'm not going to go down and block a ball that is right on the fringe because I can't, because I'm just going to sit there and be lazy and try to pick it as a strike. I don't know. I could spend a whole podcast on that, but I'm just going to leave it there. Just he's been frustrating to watch defensively, and at the plate he hasn't been a ton better. 143 batting average. He's getting on base a little bit at 280, but he's not putting the ball out of the yard like he was supposed to. And I'm confident that he's going to turn the offensive part around. I just don't. I think that's who he is defensively, and it's similar to like Gary Sanchez in New York, who drives me insane. I don't like the. I don't like what the catching position has become defensively, but that's for another time. Um, let's get into our preview for the week. Who needs a breakout or rebound this week?
Um, like I said, with my disappointment, Travis Shaw. Um, and what I didn't mention before is that yesterday he showed some signs of maybe potentially like hitting a ball every once in a while. He did hit one off the warning track in the ninth inning of Saturday, and he seems to be squaring things up a little bit more than he has. So I'm hoping that that means that he will break out, and also he just kind of needs to break out if he wants to stay on the roster.
Oh, on the roster.
I don't
even.
know. Does he have any options left? We should look into that.
I think he does, but I would be surprised to see him get sent down. But yeah, stranger things have happened, I suppose. Um, I think the guy who really needs a chance to break out, and I mean this even in a tiny way, is Orlando Arcia. Um, over his last seven, 208, 270 on base percentage. Um, that doesn't get it done. He's not a guy that you expect to put the ball in the yard, but he's not doing it. He's driven in one run over that span. I know he's your eight hitter, but when it comes down to it, this guy was viewed as like the future of the Brewers. Like he was viewed as a guy that is important to their progress going forward. He's not he's good defensively, but when it comes down to it, he doesn't produce much at the plate for you. When he does, it's very timely, but on a consistent basis, you're not seeing it from him. And it would be nice to see him even hit 270 like he did a few years back. Um, but I don't necessarily see that from him either. Um, let's get to the other teams. So we're looking at Washington and the Cubs for this week. Who needs to chill out for both of those teams?
To start off with the Nationals, Strasburg, he honestly just scares me. When I heard that he was pitching against us, I immediately became terrified. And he just genuinely scares me. I mean, he strikes a lot of guys out and he covers a lot of innings, and it scares me. And then for the Cubs, another one who scares me is Anthony Rizzo. In his last seven, he has really started to get hot. He's only had 3 strikeouts, which terrifies me, and he's had 4 home runs. So
And he just smoked a double or like hit the ball harder than most things I've seen to score a run off of Wainwright. Anyway, keep going.
that just further proves my point. Yeah,
Right.
that's all I got to
Guy's
say.
on fire. Yeah. The guy's one of the hottest hitters in baseball right now. I mean, between him, Bellinger, and Jose Martinez, like it sucks that you're running into these guys when they're just lighting it up week after week after week. They seem to shut down Jeff McNeil a little bit this weekend, which was nice to see. But um, yeah, it would be great for Rizzo to be chilled a little bit by the time the Brewers get to him. I'm gonna go with Howie Kendrick from Washington. I mean, that's not necessarily a name that I thought I was gonna be bringing up in 2019, but he's had a little bit of a resurgence after being hurt earlier this year. The guy, I mean, he's tearing the cover off the ball over the last seven. He's hitting 357, 379 on base. Not necessarily been a run producer, but he's getting on. Not a run. He's not driving runs in, but he's scored 3 runs over that span. Um, he's always been kind of just that guy who's just going to do things the right way, and he's done a good job with some power over. He missed a few games at the start of the year, and he's hitting the ball out of the yard better than he has been over the course of his career. So that's going to be something the Brewers have to watch out for. He's a sneaky threat against them. And then for the Cubs, it's going to be Kyle Hendricks. The guy threw a Maddox the other day, which to me is one of the most impressive, one of the most impressive feats in baseball. He so for those of you that don't know, Maddox is finishing a complete game in under 100 pitches, named after Greg Maddox, a Hall of Famer. Um, he threw 81 pitches to get through a game to throw a shut piece. That's insane to me. I don't get how you can do something like that in 9 innings, but he got it done. Kyle Hendricks has always been a guy that's scared me a little bit just because of how well he can throw his junk at people, how well he can locate different spots without throwing that hard. So we'll see how I'm assuming the Brewers will run into him at that point. We'll see how the Brewers end up faring against a guy who's not necessarily a power pitcher coming at them. Um, who needs to stay consistent for the Brewers this week?
We've already talked about him a couple times, but Zach Davies, he just needs to continue putting together good quality starts. Not necessarily going 7 innings every game, but if he can put up a little more over 5 and go under 2 runs allowed, that would be awesome. You're guaranteeing a win almost every time he's coming up to the mound.
Right. I mean, he's been impressive. I I'm gonna go on the other side of the ball and go with Stakis. The guy has been just driving in runs in a multitude of ways, putting the ball in the stands. He's been getting base knocks to get guys through, hitting some doubles. He was filling in that 3 hole for you when Christian Yelich was on the shelf for a little bit. So seeing him, he's been worth every bit of money that they've spent on him at this point. So hopefully he continues that and is a guy that can lead the Brewers to the promised land as they were hoping he would be before.
I
Who is your
100%
surprise?
agree with
Sorry,
that.
go ahead. What was that?
I was just gonna say I 100% agree with that. He's kind of been the unsung hero of the last week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like he's not. Weirdly enough, he's not a guy who's a big name power for the Brewers, which he was super good in Kansas City and won a World Series. You would think that he would be a guy who would have more more power behind the name, but I think he will after a performance that he if he continues a performance like this over the course of the year, he's gonna be an all-star at the second base position based off of just straight power. Like we talked about, you mentioned it earlier that it's such a power game now with Christian Yelich. Like everyone's viewing like the MVP as a guy who can hit home runs and whatnot. So
Which
he's
I
probably going to be a
disagree
guy
with,
that.
by the way. Completely
Yeah, no,
disagree.
I don't necessarily. I don't agree with it either necessarily, but I have a feeling that's going to be a way that he gets in um, for some accolades throughout the season. Your surprise breakout for this week.
I'm gonna go with Yasmani Grandal. I don't know. I think I just have an odd feeling that he's gonna start to pick it off offensively. Just to touch on what you were talking about defensively with him, I think something to note is we've been very, very spoiled with how Manny Pena has fielded his position for the last couple of years. And I think
Hmm.
it's very odd for us to see a guy who doesn't stop every ball behind the plate. And I'm not saying that it's okay because there's definitely some that he should. But I think when we signed Grandal, I think we knew that we were gonna have that decrease in defense in hopes that we were gonna have an extreme increase in the offense.
But that's the thing. He was viewed as being one of the top defensive catchers in the game. Statistically, he is. But when it comes down to it, like I said, with the wild pitches, that seems to be thrown around so much because it's not negative against catchers. And I I struggle with that because there's balls that when you're reaching across to try to pick instead of kicking the leg out and sliding out to block that thing towards home plate, when you like he just does that so much where he tries to pick balls. Like he tries to pick balls instead of blocking them and he misses them. He just like doesn't focus on a higher pitch and drops it. Like I just have a problem with that and it doesn't quantify into a stat and it just seems like he almost gets written off like he gets a pass for it and it's not just him, it's other catchers too. But it just he's not as good defensively as the stats say. I guess we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I guess
This
just to touch on that real quick, I think I honestly pay zero attention to defensive stats because I think none of them are very good. I think a lot of it very much depends on the situation.
mhm.
And for me, being an extreme stat person, loving every stat out there, defensive stats are terrible and should never be paid attention to.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about certain ones. With, I mean, you can just straight up say for catchers caught stealing or throwing guys out. That's cut and dry. You threw a guy out or you didn't. Like, and that's where it comes down to with a lot of them. It's got to be really like black and white with some of them. But yeah, I agree with you that it's really hard to quantify defense. Um, I am going to say for the breakout, it's going to be Corbin Burns. pitched well yesterday, which is great to see. I think we're going to see him. Say he does, um, say he ends up getting some more of these higher leverage relief appearances, or if he gets another start, I think we're going to see the Corbin Burns that we saw last year, just like we did yesterday. So I'm hoping that he can come around, and I think he will this week. Let's wrap things up. What's your prediction for this week?
I am going with Corbin Burns will make the start on Tuesday for Anderson. I think
Ooh,
I mean I'm on the Corbin Burns train, and you might get an invitation back if you ever decide to come
I'm
back.
not off it. I'm not off it.
It
I
sounds like
never
you're off
jumped
it,
off.
but it
I
sounds
just
like
said
you're
he's
off
gonna
it.
bust out this week.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, whatever. Later discussion. Um, but I think they've always seen him as a starter, and I think Tuesday will be a perfect opportunity to make that start, coming off of a really good bullpen appearance. So I think it could be very possible that we will see him on the mound for Tuesday, and that's not necessarily saying he's going to go 5 innings. That may be saying he's going to go 3 or 4, and we're going to finish the rest off with the bullpen.
Hmm. I don't disagree with that. I know that that opener theory was thrown out as an idea for Tuesday. Um, so that could, I mean, Burns could be your quote unquote opener, like you're saying there. So I could see it. I think it's going to be Birch Smith personally, but I also wouldn't hate to see it be Burns and give him another shot there. My prediction this week, it's not going to be a pretty one, but Max Scherzer and Steven Strasburg are going to combine for over 22 strikeouts Monday and Tuesday. You said Strasburg's scary. I think Max Scherzer is someone that haunts the nightmares. Two different colored eyes and a guy that's going to throw gas past you. I know
I
he's
forget about eye color.
right,
Oh,
and then just sits there and swears at himself on the mound. He's terrifying. I would never want to hit against him. Um, but he hasn't been the Max Scherzer of the past this year, but he's still only has like I don't know. He still got um 62 strikeouts and ERA right around 4. I don't necessarily. I think he's going to be a guy who is going to continue to be your um standard Max Scherzer, and I'm worried that it's going to start coming up tomorrow. So we'll see. I don't necessarily think the Brewers will lose, but I think these guys are going to rack up some strikeouts just based off of the makeup of the Brewers roster. So we will see. Before we go, any questions, comments, concerns, things to yell at me about?
just pointing out once again, your invitations to come back on the train are running low, so I'd use them wisely.
Hey, I'm back on the trains that I think I need to be on. So I'll uh, I'll save up those small ones or I'll save up those few that I have left for later on in the year. Um, Sound good?
You know, it's your world, man.
Yeah, it sure is. All right, let's sign off this thing. Let's go Brewers. Let's have ourselves a great week. I still have that prediction starting last week of they will win eight out of the 10 of the homestands. So for that to happen, they're gonna need to sweep. They're gonna need to sweep Washington. So that's gonna be a tall order. But please let me be right about one of these bold predictions because that's gonna get me all jacked up. um, all right. Well, we will. I'll catch you next week then. All right.
All right.
All right. See you guys.